time, two. Super lekker. Super lekker. I get a radio feeling from the lava lamp sun. Walk cotton tracking with the coochie bar. Take a far from vista and the wine in your eyes. Till you fall in the ponytails, gaze at the sky. Super like a summer, don't you think so? Super like a summer from the get-go. Don't forget about the resto. Jump, jump, jump until you let go. One time, two, to take your body back. One time, two, sail offshore. One time, two, to take your body back. One time, two, catch me at the encore. Stand in your tippy toes, running to the waterline. It's just the heat on your tummy and the oil for the shine. Super like a summer, don't you think so? Super like a summer from the get-go. Don't forget about the resto. Jump, jump, jump until you let go. One time, two, take your body back. One time, two, sail offshore. One time, two, take your body back. One time, meet you at the encore. Take your body back. Sit down, coming out of PE town. Drink, find a shot, never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot!
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot!
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle, have a Gino shot.
Gino shot!
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot!
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot!
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle, get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Center Stage.
My head's still smarting and eyes are still squinting because of that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gino's Spot. Tuesday, 6:30 every single Tuesday, 6:30. We've got a bit of PE. A bit of PE-ness coming towards you, and Eastern Cape, of course. Gino's Spot's all about the just making people in the Eastern Cape pull together to get themselves out of the old plague routine into the new routine going forward that we want to do. Thank you, of course, to our sponsors, Spar, and we've got Sovereign there. Check it out. We've got Sovereign there, Fires. We've got Spar and Fitch and Leeds as well. Thank you. And our internet. For our internet as well. We've got Fires. You can check Fires ready to go. Yeah, he's going.
I'm more interested in our guest tonight.
Indeed. We have got our guest on, and he's coming in all the way from National. Ek dink he's from National off. All the way from the Western Cape, just out of the Eastern Cape. And we're not going to waste any time. We are going to bring on Dave Richardson tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the show. Now it's your time to shine. We're gonna have a lekker chat tonight. Another good time.
Dave Richardson, welcome to Gino's Spot.
Thank you, Gino. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Dave. Good to see you. The most famous man from Walmer. In fact, I'd go a step further and say from Port Elizabeth. How are you, Dave?
I don't know about that. Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thanks. Good to see you again. I haven't seen you for a long time.
It has been a long time. I was trying to work out when last I saw you. I think it might have been on television.
I think it was when you told us that you and Kenny had gone fishing at the aquarium one night.
Quite often, in fact.
I wouldn't put it past him.
We wanted to have a fish fry.
It wouldn't be the first time he's been arrested, you know, Dave.
Dave, it's great to see you.
Sure.
How are you?
No, well, thank you. Enjoying retirement. A lot less stress. I think I've unfortunately, all my hair went grey a lot many years ago. So
Funny you should say that.
because
Yes, exactly. I was actually going to say to you that I definitely, the last time I saw you, you didn't have that much grey hair. I know that.
Sure, no, but it's been a long time coming.
And you know, Dave, we were actually just we're in Thomas Road, yeah, and I think I could probably throw a stone to the house where you grew up. Is that right, in 6th Avenue?
Yes, the corner of 6th Avenue and River Road. The traffic lights there now. When we first moved in, I think it was a stop street, and then we used to have They eventually put a traffic light in. It solved a lot of the problems.
Yeah, I'm sure. A couple of crashes down there. Did you take your go-karts down Lloyd Road as well? And
not quite. Not as bad as those guys in 5 Ways in Cape Road. Those university students, Dickie Elliott and there was a chap, David Lewis, I think it was. He was a South African paraplegic athlete. So he had a whole lot of wheelchairs in the house, for everyday use for his athletics, etc. And they used to have, on Sunday afternoons, they used to have races down Cape Road. And apparently when from the lights just, up the way, as the cars came, they would jump out and whip the wheelchairs off the road. And all the people watching from the flats would be shouting, "Miracle, miracle."
So I'm glad to see you haven't lost your sense of humor.
Well, just seeing you and just thinking back to those times, those kind of stories emerge, those memories emerge.
And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, that house that Dave's referring to is where the Kentucky Fried Chicken is now, is it not?
No,
I think
6th
so,
Avenue.
yeah.
No, in Cape Road.
Oh,
It's where
Cape Road.
Kentucky is.
Oh, right.
I went to that house one night. There was a party there. All fall down party. Back in about the late 70s, I think. It was about the late 70s, Dave?
Yes, probably that was when UPE had just sort of started to take off as a university.
Yes.
We're getting a lot of comments, Dave. I'll show you the comments come up like this here. Brian says this should be interesting.
Gee, that guy's from Coventry in England.
Coventry, they're all the way from England. They're watching.
Brian Saroa.
Brian says,
So good to hear. Dave Richardson is your guest.
yes.
Garth Webster, very formal.
He says formal. This is not my formal outfit. I don't think. I don't know.
Can you see the comments, Dave?
I can, yes.
Yeah,
Fires
Burton
swing
Forbes.
much love.
Yeah, remember Bertie? I think if I'm right in
Yeah,
saying
no.
Bertie made his debut. Bertie made his debut for EP in Namibia, and as a youngster, with respect to Bertie, he was an unknown quantity. And the scorer on the side of the field shouted out bowler's name, and he said Alan Donald and F you. Burton Forbes. Bertie, good to see you, my man.
Oh man! So a lot of comments. Thank you, Camilla, and Diane Barnard as well.
Story reminds Brett Schultz bowling in Cape Town, or somewhere, I think it was Cape Town or East London actually, and they were just about to pick the South African team to go on tour somewhere, and the newspapers were talking about Schultz maybe getting into the team, and he started bowling, and his first few deliveries went wide down the leg side, wide down the off side, and some chap shouted from the sideline, "Schultz, your name's not even penciled in." And, anyway,
No, I see Brian saying, "How's it?" as well there. Good, a great gentleman in the game of cricket. I think that's it. I think a lot of people say that Dave always never lost your cool. In fact, whenever I picture you in a cricket helmet, I picture sweat dripping off your nose because you were always in a pinch somewhere. You've got to get us out of crap.
Just to go back to Brian Saroa there. Brian, when are you going to invite Swinger and Jenny to the game park? Swing. There's the man with the game park connection.
all right.
And
Which one,
Keith
in
Clark, I think, asked, I beg your pardon, Dave?
The one in Plett.
No, the proper game park up in the north there.
Oh, okay.
And Keith Clark wanting to know about an e-bike.
Oh, gee whiz, where are you getting the
Yeah,
e-bike?
He's been visiting recently, Keith Clark, and he uses that e-bike as like a motorbike. I don't think he could finish. He have a bead of sweat on him by the time he's finished 40K.
Did he visit you?
He came to Plet and stayed a week, and he popped in a few times. Yeah.
Okay,
You
'cause
struggled to get rid of him.
I'm sure. he said to me that he knows of a story with you once where you had to buy a rain jacket at the old at St Andrews, and it was £400 or something for the top, and then you didn't realize £400 for the bottom as well.
Yeah, £650 in total it cost me. Not
So
I wasn't very happy, and nor was Jenny quite that matter.
I'm sure I'd rather get wet.
No, for sure. And I also see Camilla Ellis. That's another local type. I think St Bernadette's, and that's what as a good young Catholic lad, I used to see your family at mass on Sundays.
Yes, yeah. St Bernadette's is we actually got married in St Bernadette's, so yeah, long ties with the church there in Walmer.
Yeah. Good one. But okay, what are you busy with now at the moment, Dave? Have you got anything? You say retired, but I mean, you never retire. What are you actually doing at the moment?
Yeah, I suppose they say there's a couple of stages to retirement. I'm still in that first honeymoon phase where I'm trying to do as little as possible.
Oh.
They say someone, I think I might have even been Keith Clark. He sent a little message saying, are you looking for your wife's attention? Question mark, and so just sit down and look comfortable. And it is a bit like that. So I'm trying to look busy in case she finds something for me to do. But yeah, I'm playing quite a bit of golf, tennis, been doing cycling, so staying active as much as possible. But also I've started bird watching and
Lovely.
doing the things that you mentioned apparently when you retire. But so maybe a little bit later I'm thinking of doing something in the cricket scene here, just locally. Maybe helping with an academy or something like that, and or at least fundraising to finance something along those lines. So maybe that will keep me busy.
You haven't run out of your steam for cricket, though. You still is that still your? I mean, some guys. I mean, you've had cricket your whole life, doing cricket. It's like, do you ever get to a point where you say, okay, that's it. I don't want to see a cricket ball. I don't want to see a cricket bat.
A little bit, but I've always loved watching cricket. Even I can sort of walk down in a village in the UK and come across a village field where they're playing cricket, and I'm interested to watch. And some of those games of that sort of standard are actually more interesting to watch than the big games, because some really funny things can happen. And so I've always enjoyed watching cricket. The difference is that I don't have to watch now, whereas my job for 15 or 18 years was all about watching cricket. Whenever there was an international match on, if you weren't watching the television yourself, you had other people doing it, and always staying in touch with what was going on in the international cricket world. Now it's a case of, if I want to watch, it's because I do want to watch. So I've enjoyed watching, for example, a few of the Eastern Cape Sunrisers performances recently, and just getting into it, but without being forced to it. I'm not. I don't panic if I can't get to see a game.
And Swing, if I may ask you a question, and I know I might be digressing a bit here, but I was telling Gino and Gary earlier, you had an incredible career, 21 years at the top level. Are your fingers and hands all right?
Yeah, actually, I suppose from a wicketkeeper's point of view, I became quite friendly with the likes of Ian Healy and those guys. I mean, he hasn't got one finger on both hands that is straight. So I've got two of those fingers, or one bad one and one that's not too bad, but a little bit bent. But I was actually lucky. I only broke my finger twice keeping wicket. and one was before World Cup, unfortunately, so I didn't go to Pakistan. But fortunately, I was lucky that way. I've had a hip replacement or a partial hip replacement on my hip, which was kind of the injury that forced me out of cricket eventually back in 1998. At the age of 38, I was just battling. It wasn't fun anymore having to take and survive on Voltarens to keep you going in the field. So apart from that, I was very lucky with injuries.
Yes. And, you know, the reason I ask you the question, I mean, I know guys who probably took 10 catches in their whole career, and they've got arthritis and they've got sore hands and broken fingers. And I often wonder about how, I mean, you had a career of 21 years at the top level. And I know when we played, certainly when I bowled, not too much went past the bat. So I didn't put him under any pressure. But I mean, keeping to guys like Alan Donald, I mean, that must have put massive pressure on your hands. And I mean, now you play a lot of golf, I believe, and no pain whatsoever.
No, touch wood, I don't battle that way at all. So, I mean, I suppose I'm just lucky that I'm not someone to suffer from arthritis.
Yes.
Initially, when I first started feeling the pain in my hip, I thought it was arthritis, and I got lots of tips from people sending in, messages saying I must try these kind of for arthritis. But actually, it turned out it wasn't arthritis. Well, not in that sense anyway. It was just a worn-out hip. And once I got that sorted out, then I've been fine and been able to play golf and tennis and all that relatively pain-free. Only thing I can't do is run, because that seems to, after 10 minutes or so, it starts to ache. So the physio said to me, well, don't run. So I've taken that advice to heart.
I think we ran enough when Kepler arrived. That's what I keep telling my family when they say go for a run. I said, no, I can't run anymore after all that running we did with Kepler. But I wanted to ask you now, you touched on something. Were you 38 when you retired from Test cricket?
Yes. So, and probably, I was looking back, I was incredibly fortunate because, my career, that 21 years you talk about, spanned basically the amateur era. When I first started playing, people were very much amateurs. I think we had one or two who might have gone overseas and played professionally in the off season. But the rest of us were either working or students, and we used to practice in the evenings. And go away on weekends. And most people, if they were working, had to take leave when they were away for the Thursday to the Monday. So it spanned from that sort of era where you just got paid your match allowances and a sort of nominal match fee, to the professional era where people began to train much more seriously, and essentially it became impossible to hold a job and play professionally. So. Fortunate that I've played over that era and seen all the changes that have happened. And the game, I mean, it's the game today now, when you look back at some of the footage from the 21 years ago, it's changed incredibly. Probably mostly due to the introduction of T20, etc.
Yeah. So let me understand, when you say the game's changed, because, and I'll tell you why I ask you the question. I would much prefer, with respect to today's players. I mean, but that's how I am. I'd much prefer to go and watch a guy like a Kenny McKeown or an Ian Botham or Viv Richards than some of today's players. So if I may ask, in your opinion, how has the game changed?
Well, I think it's become, in a way, a much more difficult game to play, especially for youngsters, and to learn their games, because you always talk to batsmen, the likes, like you've mentioned, they often talk about how they've eventually, Jacques Kallis in his first 7 innings has scored 13 runs, but then he works his own game out. But when you've got 3 different formats, and you have to almost bat in T20 cricket without any kind of fear, it becomes, I think, much more difficult to work your own game out and for you to become a settled player certainly if you want to play all 3 formats. But the beauty about it all is that the best players, in my view, are still the ones that you would enjoy going to watch. So not so long ago, Ricky Ponting, for example, was successful in all 3 formats, and he had a good technique for Test cricket, and he was good Williamson, the New Zealander, is another example of that. So there are players that are able to bridge that gap. The Sri Lankan batsmen Sangakkara and Jayawardene were good examples of that. And I just think that so it's become harder, and you probably have to work harder at your game. But I think it's doable. I always think that David Miller is a very good example of a player who first came on the scene, and when you saw him bat and hit over extra cover and through the covers and through mid wicket, he could play the short ball, he could drive, he had all the shots and all the talent in the world. And I don't think he's been managed as best as he could have been, because he's become just a bit of a slow. His audition in the T20, that his talent could have been a stalwart in the South African side in all three formats. So I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I think coaches need to realize that, hold on, they need to focus and pay much more attention to the skills needed in each of the formats. And the good players have the ability to adapt, and the better players will adapt better than others.
Yes. Okay, Swing. Sorry, or Dave, I beg your pardon. If we may just digress here, let's just go back to your early years. And I actually read something today that you and Haroon Lorgat came from Port Elizabeth and headed up the biggest organization in world cricket. You're basically the boss of world cricket. But I noticed, and I wasn't aware of this, you were born in Johannesburg. So how old were you when you came here?
I met my mother up in Pretoria, and I think his first job, he worked for Shell. So in the first few years of their marriage, I think they moved to quite a few places, like Johannesburg. So I was born when they happened to be in Johannesburg. Then a year or so later, they went to Zanin, they went to Mbabane. And then only when I think I was about 4 years old, we moved to Cape Town and then stayed there for a while, and then to Port Elizabeth. So he left Shell, got his own business with his cousin, and that was when we settled basically in Port Elizabeth and spent the rest of our time there, all our school days, university life, etc.
And you started at Marist?
I actually started at a little convent school in Pinelands in Cape Town. Went to the Marist Brothers in Rondebosch for a year. And then came to Port Elizabeth, Marist Brothers. I think we were St. Patrick's, and our school was out where the Walmer Park is now today. And in fact,
Pick and Pay Old Boys.
Knowing that I'd be speaking to you tonight, I remember Marist Brothers playing a under 11 match. I think it was under 11 against Walmer. Was it Walmer Primary? Did you go to Walmer Primary? Yes.
Correct.
And
Kenny Watson and I opened the bowling. Well, he was a bit older than me. We'd heard that this Walmer Primary team had an incredibly fast bowler. It turned out to be you. Rosal.
And no, it was you. And I still remember your keeper. He was more scared of you than the batsmen were. He stood about halfway to the boundary, and every time you bowled it, sort of batsman would miss it. It would get to him eventually. The wicketkeeper, he'd miss it, and I think Byers was top scorer by about 30 runs in the match. But
you got a good memory. I don't remember that.
This little boy was Michael Vuuren. I think you were the same size then as you were now.
Just for the sake of the people watching or listening, Dave's dad was a provincial keeper.
Okay.
Am I right in saying he played for Northeasterns? Did he not, Dave?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
they say he was
started playing for Walmer.
Yeah. So then after we moved to PE, he had already retired from cricket for a few years, and he met a chap called Jack Kirby. He saw him in the garden, and he stopped him outside the house. And Jack Kirby was the captain of Walmer Country Club, and he said, "Why don't you come and play again?" So he played there for a few years, and I've got very happy memories of going to watch those club matches. In those days, you could get the provincial match stars, even the international stars, Graham Pollock and Peter Pollock, guys, all playing for their clubs on the weekend.
Yeah.
So many a day I used to be there at Walmer or at any of the fields helping on the scoreboard or whatever. And you learn, I think you learn such a lot just from being involved to that extent at an early age.
I remember your dad well. He always wore a floppy hat and he had red gloves at Walmer. And in fact, cut me out one day because, like you, I think we both started at Walmer. We started our club cricket there, Swing, or Dave. I don't want to call him.
You can call him Swing. I'm sure.
I'm so used to calling him Swing.
I started at Union Cricket Club.
Did you not play any games for Walmer?
No, I didn't actually. So Johnny Ferrand was one of my old man's mates, and when I first finished school, I was only 17. So I went to UPE, and there seemed to be thousands of cricketers there, and so Johnny Ferrand said, "No, come and join a Union Cricket Club." There are a couple of youngsters who are very keen on their cricket, very keen. It was Neil Thompson, Colin Broadley, Terry Reid, Mike King, those kind of guys who were keen on their cricket and keen on a lot of other things. But it was
Funny you should say that.
It was a great sort of club to be involved with as a young guy. And I played there for a year before I went to the university. The one game I remember we were playing at home and Terry and Colin, them were nervous that they wouldn't pitch up in time for the match the next day, so they decided to sleep in the change room after.
Often the case.
So they were there on time when the umpires went out.
You strike me as the calm and collected one in the team.
The together one.
Were you the one that stopped all the acts from mooring each other? You know what I mean?
Not really. I mean, generally, luckily, most teams we played in seemed to have there was very few arguments or fisticuffs. In fact, if people say, do you miss cricket? I miss occasionally the competitiveness of the matches, and so that's missing in your life. That need to be competitive and play, league matches or whatever it is. But then mostly you miss the camaraderie, and that doesn't change whether you're playing club cricket or international cricket. It's the same. You enjoy the tour, enjoy the drinks afterwards in the change rooms, the going out to restaurants, and just the friendships that you make in a cricket team are as good as any. And people often talk about in a similar fashion about their time when they did their national service, how they made good friends in that time. And there were hard times, challenging times sometimes, but you became close and good friends. And cricket was like that for me. So I've got really good and fond memories of all parts of my career, from that early days at Union to my university days, and right through for South Africa.
I must say, if I may, Dave, what I remember about you, and I remember it quite vividly, you loved to laugh, although you were a serious guy. But when something tickled your fancy, you used to sit opposite me in the corner in the change room, and you used to have a good laugh. But I wanted to ask you now, on a more serious note. So you started out as a wicket keeper. Yeah,
I suppose, and I can't remember making a conscious decision that I must be a keeper. But I suppose, going to school, the coach would say, your dad was a keeper, so, you must be a keeper. And
right.
So there were times, certainly early in my career, where I loved bowling. So I'd always be bowling in the nets, and occasionally would take the gloves off. And I would have loved to have been a batting or a bowling all-rounder, maybe, in another life. But, keeping was something I did from the age of 10 years old. And probably it was the best thing that otherwise I probably wouldn't have got as far as I had if I'd taken up bowling.
Do you remember one day sneaking a little hat trick at Union? You got a hat trick.
I do.
Do you remember?
Yeah. So for the Sunday matches,
you got a hat trick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but then I lost my pace, Mike.
So just another thing, and we touched on this when we spoke earlier in the week. For the guys out there who don't know this, and this is something that's always sort of stuck in the back of my mind here, the fact that Did you go to 2 or 3 Nuffield trials, Dave?
I actually went to 3 final trials. And didn't make the team. But sorry.
It's always boggled me that. And like Brian McMillan, who, much like Dave, ended up being a great cricketer and a magnificent cricketer. They never played Nuffield. And the irony of it, Dave, and I mean, I say it with respect to the players who were chosen ahead of you. I think they retired by the age of 20. And within 18 months of him leaving school, after 3 trials, not making the Nuffield side, he makes his first class debut and never looked back for the next 21 years. And, it just shows you how, sadly, people can sometimes get things wrong. And I think a lot of those 3 keepers chosen ahead of you probably gave up cricket by the age of 20. And, kudos to you, I mean, for
sticking it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because those kind of things do have
they might have a motivating impact on you, but to be honest, I always just played cricket because I love playing cricket in a way. So yes, I would have loved to have been selected for the EP Nuffield team, but it didn't. I mean, I was disappointed at the time, but it didn't bug me long term. And quite frankly, I just didn't score enough runs at those trials. And coming from a school like Marist Brothers and competing for places with the likes of all the St Andrews boys and the Kingswood and the Grey High School, etc., who were in the selectors' eyes all of the time, every week, it was quite difficult. Yeah. And also, Mike, you might remember that, but I mean, when I first went to the Nuffield trials, it was in Grahamstown, and they picked. In those days, they used to pick 4 teams. I think you used to play.
That's right.
Against each other in like 3 matches, and in the dormitory there. I mean, I think I was 14, maybe 15, but looked about 12. And that buckshot. There was a guy there, Buckshot Knudsen. I mean, these guys were like basically men walking around,
Jesus.
And Murray Calvert, they were the fast bowlers there. And Buckshot Knudsen said, he called me, said to me, "What are you going to do when Murray Tharrows runs into bowl?"
We've lost his audio. Yeah, no good.
Amongst men at that stage.
Oh, shit.
And only really developed physically after school. Another a good... To illustrate, I mean, we went on a tour once with the Marist team, and we used to always joke because we saw, St Andrews going overseas for a tour, and we used to joke that we were going on a coastal tour to Skuni, Sardinia Bay, and Willows. But the one year we went to East London to play De La Salle, which was another Catholic school, and we went to a restaurant, and the waiter came round to take sort of drinks order before the meal, and a couple of the guys were ordering beers, and when he got to me, before I could say anything, he said, "And a Coke for you." So I mean, physically I was very immature. I didn't have the strength of those guys, so I battled at that level to be competitive. But as you say, things change after that. By the time I was 19, I made my debut for EP. And Phil Jones was the keeper, who was a very talented schoolboy keeper. He was playing in the sort of road second team, as far as I remember. Correct. 2 years later from there.
Swing, I know you're a bit pushed for time here. You've got the McEwens around for dinner. So if you don't mind, just a couple of questions. That first ball at the World Cup in 1992.
Yeah. So you can imagine, Mike, that was another great piece of luck. Being able to play international cricket and the likes of Kenny McKeown missing out and Vince van der Bijl and these guys and going to that World Cup. I mean, we were overly excited. And when it happened, I almost started to doubt myself. Well, maybe he didn't nick it. But apparently Adrian went up to him. Jeff Marsh was the batsman, and said to him, "Did you nick it?" And he said, "I hit the cover off it, mate." So there was no doubt that it was an edge. And that particular umpire, Brian Aldridge, he umpired a number of our games at the World Cup. And although he gave a couple of decisions against us, whenever he umpired, we won the match. So we were very tolerant of his mistakes.
Well, I mean, as it turned out, it didn't really affect the game. Marsh's big nick there. Did you actually catch it, or did it go to slip? You caught it, did you not?
No, I caught it. I mean,
Yeah.
The beauty about Australian wickets, and sometimes I think people get critical. I mean, they were critical of the South African team recently in Australia, but I don't think people realize how different. They always say, well, Australian wickets are similar to South Africa, similar climate. But they are so different. They bounce much more. They are quicker onto the bat. And I think people underestimate the amount of acclimatization you need to go through to be able to bat well on those wickets. They're great once you get in and you get used to the pace and bounce. But they are so different to English wickets, New Zealand wickets, South African wickets. And then, of course, you go to the subcontinent and they're completely the opposite direction, very slow and low.
Yeah.
So sometimes people need to be a little bit more forgiving, I think, especially of new people or new cricketers who go to tour these countries. And that's why Australia seem to be so good always at home, I think. But back to that incident. I mean, the ball, the likes of Donald and that, you've got whereas at St. George's Park, we always used to have to stand very close for the fast bowlers because the pitch kept low. So you were, sort of between 12 and 15 paces back from the stumps, even to the quick bowlers.
Yes.
There you 22, 23 yards back, and you have so much to move and get across to the catches.
Yeah. Excuse me. And then, Dave, just fast forwarding, you retired from first class cricket after 21 years, a fantastic career. I mean, 42, am I right in saying 42 tests, 120 odd ODIs, 200 first class games. You're 38 years old. What did you do after that? That's where I kind of lost track of you. So what happened after you retired?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I mean, luckily I had the time in those amateur days to go to university, get my degree, got a law degree, and in fact was practicing as a lawyer. So, when we got back into international cricket, I was already 31, and I had just been made a partner at Pagden, and I was really thinking, okay, now it's time to give up. And so the fact that we got back into international cricket and I got selected to go on these tours added an extra 7 or 8 years to my career. So I was making the point I was very lucky. When I was finished cricket, I used to take my cricket money and pay it into the firm as if I'm earning fees, and then take my normal share of the profits of it. And then after a while, I started to make a little bit more from cricket, and I thought, no, it's better to take unpaid leave and keep my cricket money. So I used to do that. And then by the time I retired, there was one guy who was Franco Barocas, who was after me to join his company, which was a sports marketing company. And I didn't want to go to Joburg, but he said, no, you can open an office for us in Cape Town. So that was when we moved to Cape Town, and I opened an office there, a sports marketing company. And from there, I got recruited to the ICC.
So the ICC position, am I right in saying you started off as a general manager?
Yeah, so at that time, Malcolm Speed was the CEO of ICC. He'd been the CEO of Australian cricket. He was a former lawyer. His brief was to sort of regain control of cricket for the ICC. In those days, they were sat in a little office at Lord's, above the toilets there in the clock tower. And there were only about 5 employees of ICC. They had a guy who did the media, and he only worked on Mondays and Wednesdays. So they always said, cricket can only have a class on Monday and Wednesdays, because on the other days he's somewhere else in Cambridge or wherever it was. So Malcolm Speed's brief was to bolster the ICC and make it an organization that could take back control and ownership of cricket. So he started to recruit people. He recruited a guy to head up the cricket department, which effectively was the GM cricket, which was me. And then we got a commercial guy in, and at that time they had problems with anti-corruption, so they had an anti-corruption unit, and they started to get much bigger. and to the extent that we eventually had to move to Dubai because we outgrew the Lord's office.
Yeah. So did Malcolm Speed headhunt you?
Well, I would say so. I mean, I certainly didn't apply for an advert or anything like that. But I just got a call from one day, and he said, "Would I be interested?" And I said yes, and then he flew to South Africa, and we had an interview at the Saint and Sun. And I think I was in the short list for 2 or 3 other guys. One was, I won't mention his name, but he was like a cricket legend, but had no experience in working or the legal world or anything, the financial world. So
I'm sure your
luckily
legal degree and everything came in handy there.
Yeah. And again, another bit of fortune that I started in the era where you had the time to go and study and get a degree and get something behind you before cricket took over.
Yeah. What made you choose law, Dave?
Good question, Mike, because I mean, I was so sports mad, really. Sport was my life. And when I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. In fact, I went to a vocational guidance officer, I suppose you'd call him, at the university.
Yes, the counselor.
And for advice on what I should do. And I told him, everything I'm mad about all sports. And I suggested maybe I should do a phys ed degree or a phys ed course.
Jeez.
And he, at that time, UPE didn't offer a phys ed degree. It only had a diploma. And he said, with your school marks, that would be a bit of I should rather do some sort of degree. And I had a godfather who was a lawyer in Pretoria. And I said, well, what about law? So he said, yeah, you'll be able to handle that. So I just did law without ever having a dream of being a lawyer or anything like that. But it was a great degree to have. It gave you a background.
It's strange how these things happen. It's like you just decide, I think law. Suck it out your thumb.
I must tell you, your best client ever in your early days, Spud Parker, sends his regards to you.
I see a couple of comments coming through here as well. Dave said David is boating on your rubber duck. Also, one of your favorite sports. Asking for a friend. He says.
He's causing trouble there.
No, you got suckered into
we got suckered into buying a rubber duck. Jenny thought that if you can move to Plate, you've got to have a boat. And I told them that that's the worst day. It's going to be the worst day, the worst decision we've ever made. And that's proved to be the case. I'm not a fan. The 20 minutes of enjoyment is far outshadowed by the 2 hours of
clean. Yeah.
I'm also getting the feeling, Dave, that you're quite tight with your money.
No, well, the union guys did. I admit you always used to clap their hands when I opened my wallet to kill the moths. But I think that's a bit unfair. And it comes from people that are probably tighter than me.
Yeah. Dave, just going back to the RCC. I raised this with you in a voice note, I think, yesterday. Has the game not been over-sanitized a bit?
Yeah, I heard Fanny de Villiers suggesting that was the case at one point. But, I mean, you mentioned the Dennis Lilly incident where he did something to Javed Meander and Javed wanted to hit him over the head with the bat. But, correct. I mean, that's all well and good, but, you have got a responsibility. I always ask the question, would you as a parent bringing up a young boy like your kid to play a match at school and behave in that fashion?
Yeah,
you
correct.
Probably wouldn't.
Fair comment.
And
fair comment.
It's great. Someone turning around and taking the stump out the ground and clapping the guy over the head would be very entertaining. But I'm not so sure that if everyone was doing that, people would think that a good idea. And I thought the reaction of the Australian public to the behavior of the Australian players when they took sandpaper and used that to doctor the ball.
Yes.
Yes. As a very good, I think, measure of what the public expect of players. And to me, yes, it is entertaining. But people love watching you play if they think you're enjoying what you're doing. And it's one of the reasons why I think the team back when John T. Rhodes and Brian McMillan and these guys were in the side, the public might be a bit strong, but the public loved them because, and Fani de Villiers, you know, these types of characters, because it looked like they were enjoying what they were doing. And I always think that's far more important than behaving like a hooligan or behaving badly on the field.
Okay. Okay. No, well, thank you. You've answered that. And just another thing, and I know you pushed for time. We're going to let you go shortly if you don't mind. We'd like to carry on with you for a while, but your objectives at the RCC, did you feel you achieved them?
Yeah, I mean it's easier probably in retrospect to look back and to see whether that's the case or not. But I'm not unhappy with what was achieved. It seemed to take forever to achieve some of those objectives, and I think that's the nature of the beast of the ICC. People think that, you know, the ICC CEO or the general manager of cricket can just decide something today and implement it tomorrow. But when you realize that every little change in the laws or the regulations or any new innovation or a new event has to be taken to a chief executives committee consisting of 13 chief executives from 13 different countries. And you've got to get a majority of 8 of those full members passed. Then you've got to go to, once they approve it, they recommend it to the board, and you've got to go through the same process with the board. It will become easier to understand why things take so long. But I mean, going back to that time where there were only 5 or 6 of us in the office at ICC, I mean, we have made significant strides. We focused initially on improving the standard of umpiring, and we introduced an elite umpires panel. We were having to deal with that issue of technology. Technology was starting to come into the game, and everyone was saying you need to use it for umpiring decisions. We embraced that, worked hard at it, made mistakes, but eventually got a system which I think works for cricket. Cricket is a hell of a difficult game to officiate, and the rules are complicated. The LBW rule is complicated. So I think the kind of protocols that we have in place now have worked. We had to deal with throwing initially. There was a period there where everyone seemed to be throwing. You know, every team had a spinner that action looked dubious and a fast bowler whose action looked dubious. So we cracked down on that, and slowly but surely weeded those people out the game. Had to change the regulations first to enable us to have the power to do it, and not rely solely on poor umpires having to make a decision on the spot. So women's cricket was another example. You know, so we've made progress in so many areas, but it took 15 years, 18 years. And looking back over that long period, yes, it's easy to say, oh, well, yes, we've met those 8 or 9 major objectives and we're successful. But it did take a long time.
And Dave, just very briefly, 2 more questions. And sorry, 1 more question, in fact. For those who don't know, I mentioned to you that you did a talk at Lord's, where I think Mark Nicholas was the MC. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. It was a fantastic speech that, and I think they expected you to talk for a lot longer, but you cut to the chase, you got your point across. And for anybody who hasn't seen that, go out and look on YouTube. I think you did that in 2017, did you not? Or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But it's on YouTube, and it's a fantastic, really a great speech. Just in concluding, and I'm quite surprised Pops hasn't brought you a glass of wine there, Swing, or Dave. What were your biggest challenges?
He's going to call you Swing or Dave.
Of course, Swing. He's all right. What were your biggest challenges that day?
He's so scared that you're going to invite him in to say something that he's saying.
Okay.
And just in concluding, Dave, what were your biggest challenges at the RCC?
Well, the biggest one was when I literally had just been appointed as the CEO and put my feet under the desk. The big 3 countries, you'll remember this, the big 3 got together, India, England, and Australia, at the time of an Ashes series in Australia, and basically convinced themselves that they are deserving of a much bigger slice of the cake. And I had to fly out there and meet with them. And basically, they just presented me with a proposal that they'd already. They said, "Here's our proposal. It changed the financial sharing model significantly, and we want you to support it." And that provided a huge challenge. Up until then, the full members shared all ICC event revenues and profits equally. This was suggesting that India would take like 70%. And so that was, for the first year or two, that was a hell of a fight to rewind that decision to some extent. And the revenue sharing model is still not on an equal basis, but it's much better than it was, or much fairer than it was initially when those big three did proposals to the board. And that's the difficulty of international cricket, is that the likes of India in particular, the fact is that the Indian subcontinent generates 85% of international revenues. They've got so many television companies all desperate to cover the cricket and buy those television rights, that they are able to generate huge sums of money, not only for international cricket, ICC events, but also for the IPL.
Yes.
So they've got the power. If you come to South Africa, SuperSport are great. SABC they're not competitive. So South Africa can't generate their own TV revenues, and they rely on India coming to South Africa. So India know that, and they play the game well. In retrospect, I would almost say that India could have been a lot crueler and a lot more difficult in the way they handle things. And to their credit, there's not many countries that they shirk their touring duties of. They still go to Bangladesh, still go to Sri Lanka, and they still play South Africa on a regular basis. So I think they've been pretty good, actually. But they do have significant weight in the boardroom.
Yeah, you're right.
Dave, if I may conclude here, it's been fantastic talking to you. I mean, this is a conversation that could go on for 4 hours, but I know you got people, I assume, downstairs there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Dave.
We did commit to half an hour. I'm not sure how long we've gone on here for.
No, it's been longer than it's nearly an hour, Dave. So
thank you very, very much.
And you just to know that the guys in P and Walmer, we're still here and we love you. And there's so much support. There's been an outpouring of these Ovid messages today. Wherever I went to the cricket today at the Sunrisers. We lost, unfortunately, but so many guys said, I'm going to check it, Dave. Dave's on your show tonight. So Swinger is on your show tonight.
Thank you for your time, Dave, and love to Jenny. And
same to you guys, and hope to see you all soon again.
Love to the McKeons and love to your boys. All the best.
All the best.
Nice to talk to you, Dave.
Yeah, Dave. We've got the competition now as well. We're going to do it. All right, so thank you to Dave Richardson. What an amazing guy.
Lovely
and
guy.
We're going to do the compo now. We're going to put on all the guys that are online. Fitch and Leeds is giving away a case of Fitch and Leeds for the. We're going to put a little a thing on the screen that zaps things. Thank you, Brian. I see there. Thank you for the amazing interview. Thank you, wonderful entertainment. Thank you, KC. Nice to see you at the cricket as well. And Dean Allen, back from St George's Park, who's supporting the Indian-owned T20 franchise. Could you imagine this while you were playing the T20? Do you think I think you would have been a great T20 player?
I would have loved to have played T20.
Hey, you could smack that ball if you needed to.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, it's like Dave said, the game has changed so dramatically. And funny enough, there were times at Union, I remember when the game finished early, we'd have like a T10.
Yeah, and really.
Yeah, nobody took it seriously. But I mean, that's
big
it would be wonderful to have played in something like that.
Oh man!
And sorry, Gino, if I may interject, what's really great is the fact that the stadium is packed for the first time.
Fantastic, isn't it? Marvelous!
Fantastic. I mean, Sunday I saw a banner sold out. Or Saturday, I think it was sold out.
So it was.
It took me probably 25 minutes to half an hour longer to get to your house tonight.
Yeah, because of the thing. Yeah. Fires would have done so well. I agree with you. All right, let's get this competition running. We got our final competition here, guys. Everybody that's online now gets a chance to win. Check out for your name.
Oh, Davina.
If you can see it, there, we pull in the lever. and then see where it goes. Bobby
Bobby
Cameron,
Bobska. What a fantastic soccer. There's another PE boy.
soccer player. Okay, excellent,
He
Bobby.
was a Springbok soccer player. Bobby Cameron.
We'll get hold of you, Bobby.
Bobska.
Congratulations, you won the Fitch and Leeds. Thank you to Spa. Thank you to our sponsor Spa, to Amobia for our internet, and Fitch and Leeds for our price tonight. Thank you so much. And of course, we'll see you on the 27th of this month, live at the Music Kitchen. If you're in PE, don't forget.
And then can I just
Yes.
add to that? Because he's quite well known in the Eastern Cape. On the 19th of February,
Yes.
we've got Graham Joffe, who's got a fantastic story
Oh,
to
mention.
tell. Joffers from 702. He's got a great story to tell. So
Brilliant.
That's 19 February, I think. Is it Saturday, Gary?
Saturday,
19 February.
Special
with,
show.
Graham Joffe.
Graham Joffe.
All the way from, I think, Atlanta.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Fires.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Dave Richardson.
See
Always
you
great
next
to see
Tuesday. Next Tuesday, the 4th. It's Lakoch. It's our dude from Gendermark coming on,
Oh,
and that's Siegfried Lakoch next week.
What a
Don't miss
character.
it.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bed now. I'm tired. Jesus.
Relax, sit down. Coming out of PE town. Don't drink, find a shot. Never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Have a Gino shot.
Gino shot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Get to Gino's spot.